I'll give a quick intro. Peter's going to go first. I'm just going to mute the sound, and I'll figure it out before I start talking. Awesome. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for your patience, and really sorry about that. I don't usually do the intro slides. I mentioned earlier to Peter that we're in the process of moving house, so that's why the whole kerfuffle this morning. But thank you so much for dialing in. I might just quickly start sharing screens, Peter. I've got a couple of intro slides, and then we'll get right into it. So welcome to PowerBI4Enviro's. Our mission here is to share case studies, learn new tips and tricks, and really empower other people working in the environmental and Power BI space just on their Power BI journey. Bit of housekeeping just about teams. Feel free, we'll have questions after Peter's and then again after my session. So feel free to write your questions in the chat, we'll address them then, or you can go off mute at the end of his session as well. An acknowledgement of country. We would like to acknowledge the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation as the traditional owners of the lands on which I'm dialing in from, and also pay our respects to their past and present elders, and also the traditional owners of the lands on which everyone else is dialing in from as well. DiscoverEI run this session, so myself and Christian, we're co-founders. We do Power BI training, report design, end-to-end reporting, infographics, animation, environmental analytics, really focused for the environmental and water industries. So the reason why we're all here today, we're doing another Power BI kind of mapping focus session. I find that mapping is critical to a lot of environmental assessments. And there's quite a few options now coming about in Power BI. So I'll be presenting on ArcGIS mapping, some recent lessons learned, what I like, what I don't like, and some really cool things that you can do in it. But first, we've got Peter Schmidt from Maptaskr. He'll be presenting on Maptaskr for Geospatial Intelligence. So he'll demonstrate Maptaskr's mapping and geo-productivity solution for the Microsoft BizApps platform and really showcase how it streamlines business processes, drives operational intelligence, and complements Power BI analytics. So Peter's worked in IT for more than 30 years. He moved from the UK to Perth 17 years ago, where he ran the NEC Microsoft Power BI, Microsoft BI practice. So he's trained in data visualization by Stephen Few. So he's probably one of the leading experts in data viz. That's awesome. And he founded the Perth Modern Excel and Power BI user group. Joined Microsoft 7.5 years ago as a business applications technical specialist covering Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform, before leaving in March to become Maptaskr's COO and Global Sales Director. So we're really honoured to have Peter here today presenting on Maptaskr. So I'll hand it over to you, Peter.
Thanks very much, Alice, for that intro. So good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm just got a couple of slides just to introduce who we are, and then I'm going to get on to actually live demo of all of this. So Maptaskr is based in Perth. We've been around for about 7 years now. We're both a Microsoft ISV partner and also an ESRI partner. And essentially, our solution glues those two platforms together. Our solution is used a lot in government in particular, but increasingly in the enterprise customer space, there's a lot more interest in environmental monitoring and things like that. So you need to capture data out in the field, you need to display that data on a map. In terms of our solution, it is built just for the Microsoft platform. And so all the data we are pulling from is stored in Microsoft Dataverse. Effectively, we're around operational reporting and using data in real time to help make operational decisions, but we do link through and integrate with Power BI as well where it makes sense to do so. I'm going to be showing you all three of our products today. So we do have a solution for Power Apps Premium. It also works on Canvas apps for working with maps there. We also integrate with Microsoft Dynamics, and the enterprise version is where we have two-way integration with Esri data sources. And then we have a unique mapping control for Power Pages for portals. And in fact, I'm going to start off with showing you that one. With our solution, we pull our mapping data or geospatial lookup. If a customer is using Esri, typically they will use ArcGIS because that's included with the Esri license. If they're not integrated to Esri, just want to use maps in a standalone system, then most customers use Bing Maps, and you just pay a subscription for an API key to use that. As a developer, you can get a free API key to play around with all of this. And we also integrate to other mapping providers like Nearmaps. Okay, everything I'm going to show you today is going to be live demo. Our solution is actually a no-code solution. So everything I show you again is built just using configuration out of the box. So I'm going to start off showing you our portal control. So this works with Power Pages. We have lots of use cases in government where whether it's you're applying for planning permission on a property, or you need to apply for a water license or a clearing permit, or in industry, we have mining permits and things like that. So there's lots of use cases where you need to submit mapping data as part of an application process. So I'm just going to open up our interactive map control here. And it sometimes takes a few seconds longer when I'm on Teams. Just slows it down a bit. Do feel free as we go through, if you do want to come off mute and ask questions, I'm happy to do that as well. Okay, so I'm going to go in and search for a place name. When I'm doing this search, this is using the Bing to actually do that lookup for me. And I've looked up Kalgoorlie in the goldfields here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the satellite map. Kalgoorlie, if you're not from WA, is famous for its massive gold mine called the Super Pit. And Kalgoorlie was one of the richest gold seams in the world. So the first thing I'm going to do here is actually pull up some layer data which we have pulled from Esri. Now, this is actually, a lot of this data is made available from public data sources. So in this case, we're actually connecting directly to Department of Mines and Industry. So this is not using my own ArcGIS server. I'm connecting directly to those just via a web service. And so we can see in Kalgoorlie itself, all the little yellow dots indicating all the gold claims that were made there. And they used to call it the Golden Mile. But with our tools, Maptaskr is just a browser-based tool. So we only do simple area and distance calculations. Any heavy geoprocessing is we will take that and pass it into Esri and use their engine to do that analysis for us. So we're just like Google Maps, if you like, where you can do area and distance calculation. So, for example, if I look at this, the Golden Mile is actually nearer 10 kilometers, so 6 miles long, as an example. Now, in this particular example, what I want to do is the mine in question wants to clear some land. And so first thing I want to do is bring up some other layers here. And the one that I will do is Aboriginal heritage sites. So I can now see that on my map. Just going to zoom in a little bit more so you can see what I do next. And so what I want to do is to draw an area on a map. Now, we can, if we have got an Esri shape file, we can upload that. Typically what happens if I look at things like planning applications is initially I may just draw a boundary out on a map as an indicative area. And then when that application is processed, it may get to a certain point that they'll go, okay, you need a surveyor to go out and actually peg the site with the absolute locations of this. They then provide a shape file that you upload onto the system. Now, the other thing I can do with my map here is I can go on, add some points of interest. I can add some text. And then I can submit that. So this control can be part of a Power Pages form that when that is submitted into Dynamics, what happens is it appears as a Dynamics case record. So I've just opened one up here earlier where I've got a record here. I've got a business process flow that will allow me to step through that. But I've got some details about the permit that was submitted via the form. But I've also, the person assessing the application can also bring up their own layer. So what I've done here is bring up the tenement layer for this record. I can see that the application falls within the tenement boundary here. But the other thing I can do is I can click on the tenement itself, and this is querying Esri again and bringing up the shape metadata. So the official data that's come through from DMERS, whether it's surveyed or not. There's not much details on this one, but it does give you things like dates and times it was granted, the areas, etc. Okay, so that's just the first example of capturing data. And if you want some examples of public sites, the Department of Water and Environment in WA have an interactive map. You can just go on and have a play with our control using that. They're using the previous version of our control, so that's why it looks slightly different, but the same kind of functionality is there. Another example in federal government is around environmental protection. So any project applications that go in, they have to go out for public consultation. And so if I look at the form that was submitted, within that there is a project map part, and this is the Maptaskr control embedded within that. Okay, so now I just wanted to show you that just to give you an idea of how you can capture some kinds of geospatial data. But I actually want to get on now to the reporting side of things. And so Maptaskr itself, when you it's a solution file that you download from AppSource and deploy it into your Power Apps or Dynamics tenant. It runs entirely within your tenant, so any data that is stored in Dataverse, or all your backup, security, etc., is managed just as part of your Dynamics instance. There's no external services that we use, and again, that's often critical for government because they don't want to send their data out to other services or whatever. We run entirely in the tenant. We just had a look on that previous screen on how Maptaskr appears when you're looking at it for an individual record. What I'm looking at here is the Maptaskr dashboard, which allows me to look at and analyze multiple records. So the first thing to note is you can display any type of data from Dataverse in here. So it doesn't have to be any of the out-of-the-box tables. It can be any custom entities, or it can even be entities that are related to a record that has a lat-long location. So these things don't have to have an address. If they are address data, then again, we use the Bing mapping service to automatically geocode those. But you'll see another example here where a lot of the time we're working with places that don't have an address. They're just a pin on a map. As long as we've got a lat long, that's all we want here. So when I've selected my table, I then have my queries or views that I can select from to display. Okay, in this case, I'm going to display active supermarkets. Now, the next thing we do is then just define a geographical boundary for that data. So I'm just going to, for this first example, I'm just going to select Australia. And so what it's going to do, I've only got data for New South Wales in this data set, but it's plotted all of those supermarkets on a map for me. It creates like a little heat map, and then as I zoom in on the map, I can, as the pins can resolve, I can see the individual pins. And for any particular point, I can see some details about it, and I can pop up an info card, which I'm going to talk about on my second demo, so I won't mention any more there now. Now, with my particular search as well, I can have multiple data sources. So what I'm going to do here is I also want to see where my area managers are. So I'll do the search again, and it will show that data. Now, what I can do as well when I'm looking at the data, I can turn layers on and off. So I can see, okay, I've got an area manager here, Nicole in Port Macquarie. I want to actually allocate a sales territory for her. So one of the limitations of Dynamics is it typically uses postcodes for areas, and I don't want to do that. So I actually want to just draw an area on a map. So I'm going to just draw a polygon, and I'm going to draw it around these sites, and I can right click on that and say create a territory. So all those customer accounts will get allocated to Nicole. With all of my searches, I can actually save them. So if I'm Nicole and I'm going in and I want to see my customers, I can go in and say, just show me my territories and show me my customers. When I'm looking at the data here, there's a little data tab at the bottom right of the screen saying I've got 19 records in here, and I can open that up and see those records. And again, I can configure it to display whatever columns of data I want that I can work with there. And I'll show you an example in a second of how we can work with this data. So in Nicole's case, she's managing a trip to the northern part of her territory. So she actually wants to go in and just draw an area on a map to say, actually, I'm going to plan on visiting these 4 customers in this area. So I'm just going to do a sub search for them. And now when I look at my data tab, I can see I've just got these 4 records. Now I'm going to select all of those records, and this is where I can choose to do something with them. So it might be I just want to export that data to Excel. I want to send those an email. We do a geospatial marketing a lot. So if I'm holding an event locally, I maybe just want to invite customers in the vicinity so I can create a marketing list. But what I'm going to show you here is just adding a route. So she can choose the start point. She maybe wants to put a home point and the end point. And again, this is using the Bing Maps service. So I can also say optimize the route. So I'll just set that going and just get rid of the data tab. And so that will find the optimum route for me to visit those customers. It will rejiggle the order around to reflect that. And then what a lot of customers do is they want to export that data to a Google map and then send it directly to the phone. So because of Google's licensing, we can't directly integrate with them, but this is the way we do it. We just send the waypoints to the Google Maps online and then allow people to send it through to their phone. The other thing to mention on here with this particular, I can save that route if it's a frequent one. The other thing I wanted to mention is because I can create views, I can have different filters on the views, display the same data on the map with different filters and different colored pins as well, which is what I did with this particular example. For the next demo I wanted to do, I've got another dashboard open. Let me just, I'll just reset this one. And this one is an example where we have places that don't have an address as such. So I'm gonna display mine sites. And I forgot to set an area, so let me just select an area. And so I've now got those on a map. As I had with the web control, I can turn on different layers. In this particular case, I maybe want to turn on mining tenement layers as an example. So what I've done here is I'm going to show what you can do, the sorts of things we can do with these info box cards. So I can configure these to display certain information from the underlying record. I can also configure it to perform certain actions. So I can just go in and view the record. So this is the underlying Dynamics record, so that I can go in and edit that record. But I've also can create hyperlinks, and these can be dynamic hyperlinks. So through to a Power BI report, drone footage, SharePoint documents, etc. So just in the interest of time, I had a couple that I had opened earlier. So I've got a SharePoint folder with documents relating to that mine site. I picked one of your dashboards, Alice, just to say, here's an example of how we can just link through to a dashboard or report. It is just a hyperlink, so anything you can hyperlink to, we can do that. But the other one I wanted to show, because this has kind of got the environmental angle to it, is we're working with an Aboriginal corporation that do 3D drone images and hyperspectral image analysis. So they create this amazing images of sites that you can go through, and they can further click on those sites and geo tag information within there. It's also used for things like asset management, where you get a 3D drone image of a bit of infrastructure, and then the engineers can look at it in high definition and mark any particular areas of interest on that. The other thing that we can do from that action card is actually link through to Canvas apps as well. So again, I got one that I opened to save time, and this is showing the Maptaskr Canvas app control. And this is used, actually, Victoria Police, all the frontline officers use this because they fill in lots of forms every day, and not having to look up addresses and type in addresses, they can just do an address search to find a particular location. But often they want to, in this example here, it might be, I need to tag a specific location in the park. So I'm going to drag the pin around. On the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see how it's actually changing the latitude and longitude. So the nice thing about the Power Apps is that you can easily create mobile apps that will run on your tablet or phone device. But if you're just using the device's GPS facility, you're only getting where you're stood. Whereas if the observation is, I've seen a bird in the distance, or there's some wildlife over there that I don't want to disturb, being able to bring up your location and then drag the pin to the precise location is really useful to do. I can draw areas on this as well, like I've shown previously. But the other thing to note is we store lat long values to much higher decimal places. So Dynamics itself only stores 5 decimal places, which is about a 3 or 4 meter radius location. We can store as many as you like. A lot of systems like Esri use up to 14 decimal places because they're doing calculations. Once you get to 7, you're down to millimeter precision. So we don't typically go more than that because we're not doing calculations, but that's just the example. Final example I wanted to show you was capturing locations and assets, identifying things in the location. So typically we have an extension for Dynamics Field Service that does this kind of thing. And the example, or one of our reference customers, is Melbourne Airport. And they have a challenge of, they've got a 50,000 hectare site. They have buildings that are not, don't have an address on them. So if you want to say, I'm in Terminal 1 on level 2 and in this departure lounge area, how do you sort of tag that on a map? So what we do is bring up the the floor plan for that floor of the airport, so you can drop a pin on it. Now, I can't show you the Melbourne Airport one because we can't use their site plans for security, but I can show you another example that we've done for Brisbane City Council. And they have a similar challenge that if a member of the public rings up and says, I want to report a power pole that is out, how do you do that? So in the call center, they will go, whereabouts are you? And so I can say I'm in Anzac Square. So it finds a location on the map. Now, what I'm also going to do is bring up park locations layer. I'll just reduce the opacity of that. And then as I zoom in on the city, you'll see it's found Anzac Square, and that green area is my boundary. Now, when I click on that boundary, as I showed previously, we query the asset management system. In their case, it's SAP, but Melbourne Airport use Maximo. And we go, okay, that's what we've determined is a functional location. So I'm going to select that as functional location. And then the next thing we do is query the asset management system and go, tell me what assets are in that vicinity. And so on the phone, they can go, okay, it's the one to the right of the War Memorial as I'm facing it. So I can select that particular asset. I can say, okay, then add that asset. And so when I look back at my work order, I've got the location populated for me, and I've got the asset populated for me. So again, it's a typical business challenge where you need to be precise in what you're looking for, what you're identifying, and that's what we do. So look, that was all I wanted to cover in the time that we've got. As I said, we're more around sort of operational use of data, and as I say, we'd link to Power BI. We do get asked, can our control work in Power BI? The Power BI is built on a different framework to the Power Platform. So although we have PCF controls, they just don't work in Power BI at the moment. Okay, thanks, Alice. Back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Peter. That was, really interesting. I think the data capture is a massive piece of spatial management. We did have a few questions in the chat. This one's related to what you were just chatting through. Is there a visual Maptaskr related for Power BI reporting?
No, so we link to Power BI reports, but our control doesn't work in Power BI. So that I guess that will lead into what you're going to talk about for the second half, Alice.
Yeah, definitely. Another mapping question here. Hi, Peter. What was the map from the Power Apps? Does it require premium connector licenses to Power Apps?
So it does need a Power Apps premium license because we're using Dataverse, but the data source for that, in that example, we're just using Bing Maps API. Awesome. And I'm not sure whether the Bing Maps, the Bing Maps connector is part. You can use that with the premium licenses. So you're paying for the data. I don't think the connectors, because you're licensing it, you are covered.
Yeah, definitely. Licensing always a very important consideration. Just one more question. Hi, Peter. Is Maptaskr integration part of Dynamics 365 field service? Does it come out of the box?
So when you go to AppSource, so you download our solution from AppSource, and you can get a 30-day trial that we're happy to extend. When you deploy the solution it deploys the solution into your Dynamics tenant or your Power Platform tenant. So when you install it, you then get that menu option appear within field service. I didn't actually show you it's all data-driven configuration, and maybe I will just go back and just share my screen a second because I probably didn't emphasize how easy it was to configure. So if I go back here, we have a little app that gets deployed, which is actually what I'm using here, which allows me to go in and configure the solution. So when you deploy it from AppSource, you'll click on the activate button and it will kick off a 30-day trial, and we get the email that we can send you an extended license key if we need to. Not all of your Power Platform or Dynamics users have to be allocated a Maptaskr license, so you can just have a subset of them that you allocate licenses to. We license it on a per user basis, but we have a tiered pricing model, so it drops considerably as the number of users go up. As I mentioned, we can use a number of different mapping providers. Some of them are free, like OpenStreetMaps is free, but it doesn't have all of the functionality that ArcGIS does or that Bing Maps does. Most people are using Bing over Azure Maps. I don't think Microsoft are investing a lot in Azure Maps, or it's all flowing into Bing, but we're not seeing a lot happening in the Azure Map space. Bing Maps seems to be the way they're going. And I can use different mapping tools for the different components, whether I want to use different satellite maps or I want to use Google for geocoding, whatever. And then the map settings cover the dashboard view, so what units of measure I want to use, the zoom I want to use. I can turn different bits of the functionality on and off, so whether I want to turn on annotations or calendars or routes and things like that on it. And then if I look at the individual data source configuration, so these are all of my tables within Dataverse. If I look at something like the mine site one, all I have to define is what the table name is, what fields contain the latitude and longitude values, and then when I'm using it on my dashboard, what views I want to display. So I don't have to display all of the views that I've created for that table. With my little info box, I can define what actions I want there. So those are the little buttons that appeared on that card. I can also define what data I want to display on that card. And when I bring up my data tab, I said you can choose what columns of data you want to display. So you can see it's very much data driven. It's all kind of point and click kind of configuration to it. The actual Esri data layer integration is basically we use the web service. So you provide those details to connect to that service. If you are using your own ArcGIS layer or server, I should say, is you can use a it's not an admin account, but it's like a service account to connect to that. So one of the nice things with this is if you are licensed for Esri, you don't need Esri licenses to use the Esri data within Maptaskr solution, and that's a big tick for a lot of customers, because Esri licenses are expensive, and if you're a business user that just wants to see some data on a map to work with it, you don't want to be, you don't want to pay that. And also we provide a much more simplified interface. So if you looked at the web portal control, for citizens that want to submit a location on a map or an application, they just want to see that functionality. They don't want all the other complexity that goes with some of the other more advanced mapping controls.
Oh, fantastic. No, it sounds like a really nice solution and really designed for the business users. So thank you so much, Peter, for sharing. I might just start sharing screens and we could talk about mapping in a little bit of a different sense now. So having a look at the ArcGIS visual for Power BI specifically. So I've got a little bit of an intro slide here. Lots of people across the environmental industry, they want to create amazing maps in Power BI, and there's quite a few different options available. But what about the ArcGIS visual? I personally hadn't liked the ArcGIS visual for a long time. I think it's been progressively getting better over time. The ArcGIS visual, it is actually a core visual within Power BI. We can see it's here. It's a very core visual, but it wasn't my preferred one. I'll show you a quick video of the other options of what we've got in Power BI. This is an example of Mapbox. That was my first love. You could do some really neat maps quite easily, especially like tapping into the online Mapbox studio. I then transitioned, I discovered Icon Map. I love Icon Map's probably still my favorite mapping visual in Power BI. It offers the most flexibility. We can store the data locally within Power BI, load lots of different layers as WKT, but it is more complex. And it doesn't, it's not a full end-to-end kind of web mapping tool that a lot of people in the environmental industry have come to expect with working with tools like ArcGIS Online and Story Maps, which provide you the abilities to easily toggle on and off layers, have a rich legend, tap into your organizational data. So while Icon Map ticks a lot of the boxes, and also the other core mapping visuals, we've got here we've got a field map. Here we can see shape map on the left, just to show specific kind of shapes of catchments, which are easily recognizable to the users. And just the plain old point map as well. That always has a place, super easy to configure, easy to use, fast to render. I didn't really see a need for ArcGIS, but this has been changing over the last year or so. The ArcGIS visual team have released a couple more capabilities, including allowing you to tap into your own custom reference tiles from your ArcGIS Online libraries and make those interactive. And so I started exploring it a little bit more on a few projects. So today I want to walk you through just how to get started with the ArcGIS map, and some of the things I love about it and some of the things which I don't love so much. So in a nutshell, my top 3 features, what do I love about the ArcGIS visual? The legend, it has to have, the ArcGIS visual has probably the best legend of any mapping visual in Power BI. It's really rich, and we can toggle layers on and off very easily. We can easily change the symbology. The second thing I love about it is the connectivity. So this comes with a caveat to take advantage of the connectivity to organizations' spatial data in their ArcGIS Online libraries. Both the Power BI developer and the report users, they need to have an ArcGIS license. So that is a big barrier. But if your organization is one of those which has licenses available for everyone, then this is a really big plus. So we'll see that. It also has some neat analysis features. So you can select points on the map and draw buffer rings. So say you had a contaminated site and you wanted to see what was in the 5-kilometer radius of that, what environmentally sensitive ecosystems are there. You can do that dynamically in the map. I recently learned that feature it's only really dynamic when we're working in the Power BI desktop file, unfortunately. So we'll see some limitations with that, but I still thought it was worth mentioning. The bottom 3 features, what I don't love so much, licensing to take full advantage of this visual. Developers and users really need an ArcGIS Online license. Performance, the map rendering can be painfully slow. So just keep that in mind with the data sets you're connecting up to. But also the interactivity. So while we can have interactive polygons, which we'll see in a minute, it's not as intuitive or user-friendly as you would expect with compared to other Power BI visuals. So that's it in a nutshell. Let's take a look at how we can configure it. So as I mentioned, at any time, just type questions in the chat, share your experiences with ArcGIS. I'd be really interested to learn who's using it, what you like, what you don't like about it, how you found it on your reports compared to other maps as well. So let's quickly have a look at how would we get started? How can we create just a really simple map in Power BI? So this is the ArcGIS map visual here. So we can just click, brings it on to our canvas. And you can see at the moment, I'm signed in to my organizational ArcGIS Online account. So I want to show you what we can get with just the free account. So I'm going to switch accounts, and I'm not going to sign in to ArcGIS Online or Enterprise. I'm just going to get started using the free version. So I'm just going to make a very simple point map of reservoirs across Victoria. You can see, just like the normal map in Power BI, we can create a point map with longitude and latitude. I can give these points a size based on the sum of the capacity of the reservoirs. And I can give it a color in the legend, maybe based on the basin name. So here we've got a very simple mapping visual. And at this stage, you might be thinking, oh, it's not that much better than the normal map here. But I'll show you some really cool things about it. So the first thing I love about the ArcGIS map is its legend. So even though we don't have much on this map at the moment, I think the legend is still really cool. So I'm going to call my legend. I'm going to show it at the right-hand side, and I'm going to anchor it onto the map just so it's really obvious. So we can rename this. We probably don't want to call this coordinates, maybe reservoirs. And then if I expand this, you can see that we've got a really nice scrollable legend. It's not like the normal mapping legend, which cuts off along the top, and you have to kind of keep having a very small scroll bar. It's quite nice. We can also see that it's broken down the legend into not only the basins, but the size circles for the sum of capacity. And we can very easily change the symbology here if we wanted to group these points a little bit differently. So if we do it here, we can see that these are the main basins it's grouped it into. It's also got an other category, so you can change this. So these features I haven't seen in any of the other mapping visuals. So it gives you a little bit more control. You can change the colors here and things like that. You can also toggle layers on and off. So this is where it starts to feel a little bit like a web mapping app. Not as nice and rich as Maptaskr, but this is really good for Power BI. Now other maps have this really nice kind of toggle on and off functionality. So it's not so impressive when you just have one layer in the map. But if we have a look at some of those analysis features that I mentioned earlier, then we can see that we could toggle extra layers on and off. So quickly, we've got a search option here. We can change base maps. We have a look here. We've got a function for the buffer and drive time. So we could use, we can choose a starting point. We could use our current location or add a point or select one of these reservoirs. So I'll just click, I'll add a point, maybe somewhere in Melbourne. So if we click here, you can choose an analysis type. So I think the buffer is really interesting for environmental studies. So I might change this to kilometers, maybe make it 50 kilometers. And if we run the analysis, you can see that this is the ring, this is a 50-kilometer radius zone around this point that I've added. And that's been added now to my legend as a layer. And we can toggle that layer on and off as well. So this layer will be available when we publish the report up online and share it with other report consumers. What they won't have access to is dynamically creating these on the fly, these layers. But still, it's pretty neat. We can select points from this layer as well, so we can interact and filter our reports that way. So I think that's a pretty neat feature I hadn't seen in other mapping visuals just yet. One of the other features which I wanted to show you is the ability to kind of click on the tooltips from the map. So in most mapping visuals in Power BI, tooltips are configured as hover. So you hover over it just like this and it shows you a tooltip. And you can't actually interact with the tooltips. But I'll show you if we bring in a URL into our tooltip here and go find, I think we've got one on Thompson Reservoir, a URL. We can click on this and then we can actually interact with these tooltips. So I thought that was kind of cool. Other visuals, you couldn't interact with it. So this, again, feels a little bit like Maptaskr. We could get some actions out of this, and it makes it seem a little bit more like a web map. The other thing is, if you have, I'm zooming right out here because I wanted to have lots of points overlaid on each other because my reservoirs are very spread out. But imagine you had really dense sampling on your site and you had points which kind of overlapped each other, and you wanted to inspect the information below it. You can see what the ArcGIS visual does. It allows us to have kind of scrollable tooltips here where we can click through it. Whereas other mapping visuals in Power BI, because they're hover, they just take the top one. So I thought this was a pretty neat feature. This isn't available, I don't think, in other mapping visuals. So I thought that was pretty cool. And this is all within the free version of the ArcGIS. So this is unlicensed. This is what we can get kind of just out of the box. So what I want to just quickly chat through now is to show you some of the features you can get if you do have an ArcGIS online license. So let's make a new map. We'll make one here. Very quickly again, I'll just create this the same old map. Oh, actually, first I'll sign in. So it's prompting me, do I want to sign in? So for this map, I do want to sign in. I'm going to sign into my DiscoverEI ArcGIS Online account. And we'll see what extra features we've got available to us now. So yeah, let's bring in latitude and longitude. We'll just draw our reservoirs again, just so we can get centered on Melbourne. One thing which is really cool, if you have, this is the reason why I bought a license, was just to play around with these reference layers. So this is where you can tap into your organization's ArcGIS Online content. So if your organization stores all of their corporate spatial files and layers, shape files for your different studies, you could store them in different folders, things like that. You can easily add those onto the map. So here we can turn on the flows, river reaches, can turn on the Victorian basins. All the symbology for these layers, these are actually controlled in ArcGIS Online, which is a really good thing because it means that all the symbology is standardized. So you don't have to fuss around with it in Power BI. And this is where you can start to create that web mapping experience, that kind of real feeling. We can now start toggling layers on and off, show and hide different things. You can click on these different layers, even though they're just reference layers, and get all the information about them via the attribute tables. So at this stage, these reference layers are just a reference. They're not interactive just yet. So I'll quickly show you the interactivity component. I don't love this in ArcGIS Map. I don't find it that intuitive, but I'll show you what it is. So let's create some data. So we've got these polygons here represent different basins. So I've got, I'm going to bring just my basin name into this table here. And just so we can see things. And then with our ArcGIS visual, we have to tell the visual how to relate the data in our Power BI report to the data which is saved in ArcGIS Online, which we're connecting up to here. So we've got this option here for a join layer. So I'm going to bring in my basin. I think my basin name. It could be my basin number. I forget it with this one. So we'll bring this in and we'll see if it works. So we'll bring in our linking field into our join layer. And then all we have to do is find the layer within this visual. Click on the ellipses from the legend and click join layer. And we're going to join it based on our basin name. And in this table here, I might bring in my reservoir name as well. a reservoir name. I'll show items with no data. So you can see there are some basins which don't have any reservoirs in it. So say I want to select this basin here. You can see that it does filter the data, which is really neat. That's what we expect from Power BI, to click on a region from a map, and it's actually filtering our data. So that is working as expected. But if we go now and just click here on the map, it's not filtering our data. So here we're just seeing our tooltip. We're just seeing the information about that basin. So to actually get the interactivity working, we have to either be here under the join layer and telling it to select based on the join layer, or we can be under the select features. So here we can click, once we're in the select features, make sure that one is selected. Click on either a pointer, or we can select using a polygon or a circle. And then we can see, now we can see that this polygon is selected. It's filtering the data, but we don't get that nice highlighting effect now. Now it's so unintuitive. We can't really see what's happening. You can see here that, yes, it's filtering the data, but what actual polygon have I got selected? So this is what I mean. It's almost there. It's so frustrating because it's so close yet so far. It's this I find a real sticking point. So you'd have to either have really educated users to be able to use this functionality for very specific purposes, or perhaps choose not to use the interactivity at all. So the ways that I would be using this visual at the moment is just to use it as you would with a point map, because that works as expected. Clicking on a point does filter the data. And then connect up to your data set saved in Esri online, and just use them as kind of references to show and hide and toggle layers on and off. Just a word of warning, unless your reference layers are set to public, then only other users in your organization with an ArcGIS Online license can view this data. So that's another limitation. But that said, I think it's got lots of kind of potential. It's worth exploring. Keep in mind the performance I have found is an issue as well. But it is good to know that it's there. And if your organization is one which has run off ArcGIS Online, then it is a really kind of neat visual to investigate. It'd be one which you can explore using on your projects. Were there any questions about the ArcGIS visual, or anyone want to share their experience or lessons learned using it? Not just yet. Yeah, I find that there hasn't been, I haven't heard too much about ArcGIS online in the community forums or blogs and everything as well. So I was a bit lost when I was like exploring it. So I'm going to be releasing a series of short blog videos, just going through the key features of it, how to connect up to those reference layers, doing the joins, creating a public ArcGIS kind of visual for Power BI. There's a couple of steps there as well. So just, yeah, keep your eyes out for those. They'll be coming soon. But thank you so much for joining. We've got another awesome presentation happening next month as well. So that one's up on our website, up on the meetup page as well. So feel free to register for that. We've got someone presenting from the University of Western Australia. Oh, actually, no, not from UWA. It's presenting on a UWA study, UWA's data-driven journey towards sustainability. So I think they've got some really interesting dashboards that they'll be presenting. So we've got the event up on our meetup page. Apologies for not knowing too much more about this. Christian was organising the next one. So we've got this one Actually, we've got Dr. Jason Hammer presenting, and you're on the call now, Jason. Yes, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you want to give a little?
I'll be talking through some of my project work I've been doing with the University of Western Australia on their sustainability strategy and pulling all of their data together from a lot of different sources into one platform for their internal and external reporting. So I've got lots of stories to tell, lessons to learn, little tips and tricks for the front end of Power BI, as well as touching on all of the back end architecture that makes it all possible. So it should be a bit of everything.
Oh, sounds amazing. Oh, I cannot wait. And thank you so much for jumping on this one and giving a plug for your one. You did it a lot more justice. It sounds like a fantastic session and touching lots of different areas of Power BI, which is very cool. Just a quick reminder, if you did want to watch the session again or share it with other people, or catch up on any of our previous sessions, we regularly share them on our blog and YouTube channels. If you do have your really cool data set or Power BI study you've been working on, and you want to share it with the group, doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes, a whole hour, if you're a beginner or super advanced, we would love to have you. We're always looking for new and different topics and speakers, so please get in touch with Christian. He's got his email here, or just reach out to us via our website. So big thank you so much for dialing in and for your patience at the start of the session. As you can see, Christian runs the show here, so I was just filling in today. But thank you again, Peter. That was an excellent presentation. It's really nice to not only have Power BI presentations, but also all of the other kind of supporting applications which make Power BI projects and dashboards possible, with all the data collection and thinking about storage and Power Apps and things like that as well.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. I might have to jump off now. But yeah, hopefully we see you next month when we've got Jason presenting. Thanks. Thanks again, Peter. Have a good day.
Thanks. Good luck with the move.
Thank you. Yeah, I think they're gone now, so I'll have to go catch them up in the car. Yeah.
See ya.
Awesome. See ya.